transforming lives into legacies. Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil. And now, today's word.
I am continuing where I was a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, on my series on wisdom, and this is part 3 of wisdom. And we're going to focus today on our study, and we're going to look primarily at one chapter in the Bible. I had recommended the chapter to you 2 weeks ago to go and read privately, but I know you didn't read it. So I decided that instead of trusting you to read it, I should take you through the whole chapter, and that is Proverbs chapter 8. So today, just open your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 8, because that's where we're going to be the whole of this morning, and I will be teaching from the whole chapter. We will not look at every verse, but we will look at almost all the verses in Proverbs chapter 8. And it is a chapter that talks about wisdom, and we will not do justice to the subject of wisdom without looking at Proverbs chapter 8. So I'm going to look at several themes and the whole chapter 8. And the first thing that we're going to look at in Proverbs chapter 8 is where to find wisdom. Where do we find wisdom? And Proverbs chapter 8 tells us where to find wisdom. And the first 3 verses of Proverbs chapter 8, verses 1 to 3, tells us where wisdom is found. And it says, "Does not wisdom cry out, and understanding lift up her voice? She takes her stand on the top of the hill, of the high hill, beside the way where the paths meet. She cries out by the gates, at the entry of the city, at the entrance of the doors." These 3 verses tell us where to find wisdom. If you're looking to find wisdom, where is it? And there are 4 locations that the passage tells us that wisdom can be found. First, it says wisdom is found on the top of the high hill. On the top of the high hill. It means that wisdom is exposed. Wisdom is high and lifted up. It is exalted on the top of the hill so that anyone approaching can see it. The imagery here is when you are approaching a town or a village, and there is a hill or a mountain that is in the village. One of the first things you would see as you approach the town or that village will be the hill. And it says wisdom is right there on top of the high hill. That means that wisdom is exposed. Wisdom is not in the valley. It is not in a secret place. It is not hidden in a remote part of the earth, requiring an adventure into a deep, dark, mystical place. Because when we talk about wisdom, most times people are thinking about mysteries and secrets. But here, wisdom is not a secret. It's exposed. And this is where biblical wisdom differs from occultic wisdom. The wisdom of the cults and the wisdom of God. The wisdom of the cults is hidden in secret codes, in secret books, in secret places, in secret rituals. But the wisdom of the Bible is exposed high on the hill. You can see it, everybody can see it. God has not hidden his wisdom from us. In the Bible, wisdom is revealed. The second location you find wisdom is beside the way or by the wayside. That means that wisdom is commonplace. When we say something is by the wayside, it means that it's common. Everybody can have access to it. God's wisdom is not for a selected elite who needs mysterious initiation processes to have access to it. Wisdom is by the wayside. It is common. There are all kinds of secret cults that promise wisdom to its members. And for people to have access to that, they need special initiation. But in the Bible, wisdom does not require special initiation. It is by the wayside. It is common. You don't need to learn some mysterious words or incantations to recite. You don't need to travel a long distance to a high mountain or to a cave to find it. Wisdom is by the wayside. It is commonplace. Third location we find wisdom is in the place where the paths meet. The place where the paths meet. That means that it is accessible. It is at the place where the paths meet. If you've lived in a small town or village, you can relate to this. The place where the paths meet is called the junction. And every small town has a junction. Every village has a junction. That is where people meet. That is where the boys go to meet the girls. That is where people meet to discuss. And normally when people want to have an appointment, they say, let's meet at the junction. And certain secondary schools had a junction where people meet. And they have all kinds of names or euphemisms for those places where the paths meet the junction. Wisdom is found in the place where the paths meet, at the junction of life. It is not hidden, it's accessible. The junction is where people go to sell their stuff, where the granite seller sells, where the kinky seller sells, where the orange seller sells, where the common people are, where everybody mingles. If you want wisdom, you're not going to find it in a high secret place. It is at the place where the paths meet. It is accessible. And the third place where you find wisdom is that it is at the gates, by the gates. It is inescapable. So it says that does not wisdom cry out and understanding lift up her voice? She takes her stand on the top of the high hill, beside the way where the paths meet. She cries out by the gates. By the gates. So if you miss wisdom on the hill, and you said, well, I was looking down, so I never saw wisdom because it was high there on a hill. And if you miss wisdom by the wayside because you say, well, I was so busy that I didn't notice what was by the wayside, and you miss wisdom at the place where the paths meet because you said, I have no friend and nobody invited me at the junction to find wisdom, you will find wisdom at the gate. So when you miss it in town, when you are entering your own house, wisdom is standing there in front of the door. You can't miss it. And wisdom, if you look at the passage, wherever it's standing, whether it's on the mountain, at the gate, it is not quiet. Wisdom is shouting, it is lifted up its voice, it is calling for attention. You have no excuse not to be wise. You have no excuse. Because wisdom is so easy to access. It is exposed, it is commonplace, it is accessible, and it is inescapable. You will find it wherever you look. That is where you find wisdom. And Proverbs tells us wisdom, the wisdom of God, is available to all. And if you read verses 4 and 5, and I'm just going to make a little comment on that, it tells us that wisdom calls to all people. It calls to all people, especially to the simple ones and to the fools. So wisdom is calling to all people. Wisdom doesn't say, well, you haven't been to school, so I'm not calling to you. Wisdom does not say, well, you are a woman, so I'm not calling to you. Wisdom does not say, well, you are an African, I'm not calling to you. Well, you are short, so I'm not calling to you. Well, you're too tall, so I'm not calling to you. Well, you're too fat, so I'm not calling to you. Wisdom calls to everybody. It speaks to everybody. Each one of us have access to wisdom. So if wisdom is so visible, and wisdom is crying out and calling out, what is wisdom saying? What is wisdom saying? And verses 6 and 9 tells us what wisdom is telling us. When it speaks on the mountain, what is it saying? When it speaks by the roadside, what is wisdom saying? When wisdom speaks at the junction of life, what is it saying? When wisdom speaks at the entrance of the gate, what is wisdom saying? What is the voice? What is the sound of wisdom? So let's read verses 6 and 9 of our passage, Proverbs chapter 8, and it tells us what wisdom is saying. It says from verse 6, listen, for I will speak of excellent things. Underline that, excellent things. From the opening of my lips will come right things. And you can underline that to right things. For my mouth will speak truth. You can underline truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips, and all the words of my mouth are with righteousness. And you can underline righteousness. Nothing crooked or perverse is in them. They are all plain to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. So yes, wisdom is open, it's exposed, it's accessible. Wisdom is available. Wisdom is at the junction. And if you miss it, it's right at the entrance of your house. It's at the door. And wisdom is crying out to all people. What is it saying? What is the voice? What is the message it's carrying? First thing wisdom talks about is excellent things. Wisdom calls us to what is high and above. Wisdom speaks to you. Whenever wisdom speaks to you, it's going to challenge you to move from the level you are to a higher level. Wisdom never calls you to ordinariness. Wisdom never calls you to the status quo. Wisdom never calls you to stay where you are. Any voice that says, it's okay where you are, don't worry, just stay where you are, don't push, it's not a voice of wisdom. Because wisdom is always going to call you to excellent things. Wisdom is going to say, you are doing well, but you can do better. Wisdom is going to say, you must improve. Wisdom is going to say, you have to excel. When you think you are the best, wisdom will still tell you, you can be better than your best. Wisdom always calls you to a higher level. So listen to all the voices you hear and discern which one is of wisdom and which one is not. And one of the first things you qualify whether a word is of wisdom or not is it calling me to excellent things? Is it telling me to excel? Is it telling me to be better? Is it telling me to overcome? Is it telling me to conquer my limitations? If you are, for example, you have a problem and somebody say, it's okay, we are all like that. That's not the voice of wisdom. If you have a marriage problem and you go to seek counsel and somebody says, oh, don't worry, all marriages are like that. That's not the voice of wisdom. If you have a moral problem and you want help and somebody, oh, don't mind, oh, don't worry, all men are like that, or all women are like that. That's not the voice of wisdom. Because the voice of wisdom is always going to say, don't stay where you are, climb up higher, move up higher, change, be better. If you are broke and you go to seek somebody's help and say, oh, don't worry, That's how life is. You'll be broke forever. That's not the voice of wisdom. The voice of wisdom will always call us to something that is excellent. So do an audit of all the voices that speak to you and find out what calls you to excellence and what calls you to comfort, to where you are. And the one which calls you to be comfortable where you are and not change is not the voice of wisdom. I would not say the opposite, but it is the opposite of wisdom. So one of these days, somebody will counsel you to do something. You tell him, sir, I think what you are saying is not wise. Because wisdom will call you to excellent things. Excellent things. The second thing wisdom says is that it is going to call you to right things. To what is straight and what is orderly. The word that is translated right in English, in the Hebrew, means to be straight and orderly. To be straight and orderly. Wisdom tells us to be orderly. Wisdom will not call us to disorder and chaos. Wisdom is not haphazard. Like we say in Ghana, wisdom is not by heart. Wisdom will tell us to manage our lives well. Wisdom will tell us to manage our marriages well. Wisdom will tell us to manage our time well. So if you're wasting time, not managing your time well, that's not wisdom speaking to you. Whoever comes to speak to you and wastes your time is not bringing wisdom to your home. Whoever calls you to participate in an activity that takes a lot of time but produces no results is not calling you to wisdom, because wisdom will make you orderly and straight. You will not be crooked when you walk in wisdom. Wisdom will tell you how to manage your resources well. Wisdom will tell us how to be disciplined in all that we do. Indiscipline is not the voice of wisdom. If you want to know whether you're really walking in wisdom, check your life. Am I walking orderly and straight, or I am chaotic and haphazard? Go to your bedroom and learn. How did you leave your bedroom this morning? Did you live it in wisdom? Are you going to meet a wise bedroom when you go back home? What about your kitchen? What about your living room? What about your wardrobe? So go to your wardrobe after church, open it, and advise yourself. Because wisdom will speak to us about things that are orderly and straight.